is a significant step forward for the party, both organizationally and politically. And this meeting and this tremendous banner that Roland did, and all the work that the comrades on the Standing Disability Committee are doing is huge in terms of the party's development in the movement, and making the history and all of our resources and knowledge the property of our class. And with that, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I'm just going to give you an overview of significant events in the history of the struggle of people with disabilities, at least in the U.S., because that's what we know about here. That's what, and because there is so much in this theater of the class struggle, I'm going to just touch on significant events, and our job is to add more significant events to that history, which we will. But first of all, the history of people with disabilities and the history of people with disabilities organizing against the strictures imposed by capitalist society is a history of people organizing and breaking through isolation and breaking through lots of barriers to and realizing the power that the old Union song, "The Union Makes Us Strong," just the power of collective struggle. In bourgeois society, Helen Keller pointed out that Helen Keller, of course, being a historical figure who she had not only, because of what she had achieved, because of the obvious barriers in the way of society of deafness and blindness imposed by the society upon deaf blind people. She was a socialist and a member of the IWW, and she was an organizer and spoke out against the First World Imperialist War. One of the things she had said when the bourgeoisie had started criticizing her for saying stick to saying stuff about blind people, stick to doing your wonderful stuff with blind people, and don't get into this whole war on poverty stuff. She said, so long as I confine my activities to social service and the blind, they compliment me extravagantly, calling me arch priestess of the sightless, wonder woman, and modern miracle. But when it comes to a discussion of poverty, I maintain that it is the result of wrong economics, that the industrial system under which we live is at the root of much of the physical deafness and blindness in the world. That is a different story. It's okay, it is laudable to give aid to the handicapped. Superficial charities make smooth the way of the prosperous. But to advocate that all human beings should have leisure and comfort, the decencies and refinements of life, it is a utopian dream, and one who seriously contemplates its realization indeed must be deaf, dumb, and blind. That is what she was told. But, so but she didn't shut up. They've had an FBI file on her since. She spoke out for Elizabeth Gurley Flynn when she was when Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, one of the leaders of the Communist Party, who was imprisoned in 1955 under the Thought Crime Smith Act, and she basically kicked ass and took names, but but then the bourgeoisie's portrayal of her is has to be overcome. It's the usual kind of maudlin, kind of nauseating portrayal, inspirational kind of thing that we don't need. We don't need to inspire them. But anyway, I thought I'd just open up with her example and second, I want to speak a little more about some of the movements that have been influenced by people with disabilities and formed by people with disabilities, and one being the Bonus Army in the spring and summer of 1932. 14,000 veterans of the First Imperialist World War and their families and friends and supporters marched on Washington demanding that the government immediately fulfill its promise for benefits instead of what they had previously did was said that, well, we'll give you benefits, but they're only payable in 1945. And so the Bonus Army marched on Washington. Bonus Army it consisted of a lot of veterans with disabilities. We all know that imperialist wars are a large contributor to all kinds of disability, whether it's physical or psychological or emotional, or and then the soldiers are returned and and dumped back into society with no support. And these veterans were trying to organize to get some of that support, but in return for that, Hoover sent the army onto them, led by Douglas MacArthur, who was they set fire to the encampments. They killed 2 bonus marchers at least, and they injured and arrested many others. That's one of the reasons why MacArthur is justifiably hated by workers and oppressed people. But the significance of the bonus army was the of the putting on the table of the needs and the rights of veterans and veterans, among whom were veterans with disabilities. Some other significant events in New York City in the mid-1930s was the League of the Physically Handicapped. These are folks who had physical disabilities who organized because they were being discriminated against when seeking jobs with the WPA, and there were picket lines and stuff, occupations of WPA offices, and picket lines set up that were supported by much of the left at the time, but and they won some partial concessions, but it was a significant movement of people with disabilities. After the Second World War, the improvements in healthcare and in medical technologies and such increased the lifespan of people generally, but they also increased the residual disability of folks who were alive, who wouldn't have been alive before. And in the 60s and 70s, that created a critical mass of folks with disabilities who organized mutual support networks, peer support networks, in their own sets, their own model for support service delivery of what people would need to live freely and independently in their homes and in the community, and also started advocating for physical accessibility to buildings and accessibility to schools and jobs and stuff like that. This was the beginnings of the independent living movement.